Well, hey there. I'm really excited to talk to you today. We've got some exciting updates, and you have a lot of questions. And so today, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be talking about Care Ministries, Care Groups specifically, which is a new initiative we're launching hopefully this fall. And we sent out a survey a few weeks ago. We've been talking about it kind of a little bit as kind of this idea that we're building. We haven't given a lot of information about it, but my goal is for that not to be the case. My goal is that every single person knows about this initiative and kind of what it actually looks like and what it is. And so today what we're going to do is we're just going to sit down. I'm going to update you on our progress with building out Care Ministries and Care Groups especially. We're going to talk about the survey, what the results showed of that, and some of the questions that I've already seen come in, and we're going to answer them. And if you have more questions, you're watching this and you're curious about things and you're like, he didn't address this, awesome. Send them my way. My email is elijah@lcymtn.com. I'd love to hear from you. We'd love to connect. So without further ado, let's dive in. But first, I have to go steep my tea. First of all, the survey. Can I just say thank you so much for everyone who filled that out? I super appreciate it. For those of you who don't know, a few months ago actually, we put out a survey. We basically said, hey, we're working on this thing called Care Groups. We're looking to see what topics need to be addressed in the church, what struggles people are dealing with, and how you want those addressed a little bit to some extent. So we put this survey out. We asked a couple questions just about your thoughts on building out this ministry and the topics that we were going to address specifically. That was really, really helpful. Thank you to the 107 people who have responded so far. It's nice to just see those trends and to know a little bit about what is the need of the actual church, not just kind of, I think, as a leader in a church, it's really easy for me to just say, I think we need to address these issues. And a lot of times what I'm going to end up addressing are things that I'm seeing and that I'm personally trying to figure out. And so we're going to miss a lot of different groups with that because I don't have all of the life experience that you have. You don't have all the life experience that your neighbor has. Everyone's a little bit different. And so to see those kind of general buckets of like, okay, what do we need to address? What are the struggles in the church? How do we address them? The survey was super helpful. So now that we've talked about that, let's talk about what the survey was actually designed to represent. So care groups themselves, there's been a little bit of confusion over, and I saw some questions come in on the survey asking about this. One of the things that I want to make super clear right off the bat, care groups are not replacing life groups, and care groups aren't even dipping into the pot of life groups. The intention was never to to go in to kind of disassemble life groups to make it something new and revitalize it. Like, that's not what we're doing here. Life groups are run by Stan, our discipleship director, and they're focused a lot on how to build that small group community outside of church. Or not outside of church, but outside of a Sunday service, I should say. And so what life groups are designed to do is to give the community aspect that the church was always intended to do, that we just don't always have an opportunity to do on a Sunday morning. They're phenomenal, and we're expanding them. We are not detracting from them. We're not changing them over to the care group model. Care groups is being built as an entirely separate entity of its own, totally different. And we know that some of the labeling has been a little confusing. So let's talk about that real quick. Care groups, the idea is we see that in life there are some really specific struggles that need some really specialized, intentional assistance. They need people who are trained to address them. That's where we get things like counseling. When you have very specific struggles, some of them are beyond our scope of care, like as church leaders. Some of us aren't trained counselors. Some of us are, myself being one of them. So some church staff members aren't trained counselors. Some lay leaders aren't trained counselors, but there are certain topics that we can take, that we can build a group around, that we can build a focus around, where we train leaders specifically to address one specific topic with intentional training that we have curriculum for that was built by somebody who knows what they're doing. And so the idea of a care group is that we take those issues, those struggles, those topics we asked about, things like marriage, divorce, some levels of addiction, some levels of financial insecurity, things like that, and we build groups focused on addressing that. Care groups are not like life groups. They're not going to just start and go. They're not going to be all year long. They're not going to be long-term at all. Actually, they're going to be short. They're going to be 8 to 12 weeks, depending on the group. Some of them will be shorter than that. Some of them will be a little longer, but they're going to take these topics and they're going to have a curriculum developed around those topics that are super intentional, that equip our leaders to do what they need to do and to only address those one topic. So we're not just taking someone who's got a lot of complex issues and saying, this one person is going to fix all those complex issues. That's counseling, right? Counseling is this, I'm coming in with my story, my experience, my life, where I'm at right now, and I need to be realigned with how God has intended my life to be, where the holes where I'm ignoring him, where I have turned away from him, the areas where I just need help and I'm struggling and life has hit me too hard. And all of those complex relational things go into counseling. So when we go into a counseling session, we come in with our full selves, our full vulnerable selves, and we bring everything we've got and we go to one-on-one care for that. Care groups are going to be, here's an issue, a specific struggle I have, a specific thing that's happening to me in life, whether it's grief, whether it's some form of addiction, whether it's some form of marital issue, whether it's parenting struggles, anything like that. We have a specific issue and we take that and we make a group around people and building community around that struggle in order to assist and grow a person through that. So it's kind of like we're looking at it as a triage model as a church. This is kind of how care groups came about. We looked at the needs of the church. We looked at the needs of humanity, honestly. Like, I don't know if you guys have realized this. So my background is in psychology and counseling. Like, the data on the number of people that need counseling, the number of counselors we have to provide that care, and the amount people now pay for counseling, just off the charts in all the wrong directions. The need is heard, it's felt, it's seen. We see that. I see that every single day. It's been weighing on my heart for a long time. And we as a church have seen it for a long time. We're like, we need to address these needs because the church was always meant to provide this care. That's how God intended it. That's how it was structured. There are certain clinical, psychological things that we as a church right now are just not equipped to handle. We accept that. And we are referring to good Christian counselors that we vetted. And so for those specific sets of issues, great. Like, we've got a procedure in place for how we can get people to help. But we also have some more top level issues that are going to precipitate down to those bigger, deeper issues if they're not addressed now. So the way we're looking at our first step in building a care ministry is kind of a triage effect of like, we need groups that are addressing these topics, that are addressing these struggles in a healthy way with equipped leaders. The thing with life groups is we used to have this line, and I think we're changing it now actually a little bit, but basically we used to say anyone with a pulse can lead a life group. Anyone who's able, please help us lead a life group, because we're just building community around that. Care groups, that's not the case, because what we're bringing in are people who are going to assist in some very difficult areas, some very personal, sensitive areas that we want to protect extremely well. We're being super intentional about who we let lead a group, about the qualifications they have, and then we're training. We are training our group leaders. We're not just putting anyone into this position. We're not saying, here's a curriculum, go learn it and have fun. We have an advisory board of counselors and psychologists and people who are just like super wise in this stuff that we are equipping to help equip these leaders, right? So we're trying to create this multi-level structure that is really well protected for your sake, that provides really comprehensive, healthy, Christ-centered training around these different issues. So that's a big task. For anyone who's now just like sitting there like, oh, that's a lot of pieces. Yes, I'm there with you. I've been trying to put this puzzle together. We first started this initiative, honestly, we've been talking about this. We've been talking about a need for a care-based ministry for as long as I can remember, since I got hired. And that was 3 years ago. And we've been working on this intentionally, care group specifically, since November of last year. And we're just scratching the surface. So it's got a long ways to go, unfortunately. But we are planning our first launch for the fall. And what that means is we're going to soft launch a few groups, very intentionally, very carefully, that we've been working on for a while now, that people are well trained in. A lot of these are groups we've offered in the past. And then we're going to keep just building off of that. And so our first course of action has been to develop trainings and develop a team to oversee it and develop all these things behind the scenes. And I'm going to get into that all in a little bit. But for now, I just wanted you to have a background on what is Care Ministries, what are care groups, and I hope that clarified it a little bit. It's a lot of things, but we're trying to be really intentional and careful about how we go about it. That's the one thing I probably want to highlight out of this. It sounds chaotic. It sounds like there's a lot of pieces, and there are a lot of pieces to make this work. But at the end of the day, what we're looking for is a simple, intentional, well-equipped group of group leaders. Honestly, we're going to have more than one leader per group, that then carry out a super intentional, well-trained, well-executed, intentional group. So it's a journey. And we're just now beginning this journey, and I'm excited to see where it goes. I think we as a church are excited to see where it goes. And I'm excited that you guys are interested in it. And we've seen that through the survey. So let's talk about the survey a little bit for a second. In that survey, we asked questions about what groups are you interested in seeing developed and what groups would you actually participate in. That was actually really helpful. Thank you for answering those questions. I hope honestly. We did it anonymously on purpose. Everything we're doing, we're trying to protect and guard confidentiality from ground zero. some people noticed on those surveys that that it asked for you to sign into your Google account. We didn't enable that feature. We actually disabled the feature that required you to sign in. But Google still pushes apparently for you to sign in so you can save your form progress or whatever, so you can like walk away and come back, I guess is the purpose of that. One thing, we said this on the Facebook post, but we don't see that. We have zero control over seeing that. We have zero control over whether or not that shows up. So sorry on our behalf that happened. That wasn't intentional. And that data about whose account it is and what forms are linked to what account, that's for you. That's to save the form to your account. We don't see that at all. We're not collecting anything. We wanted to make sure that was private for the sake of honesty, so we could open up and say, hey, these are the actual things that I'm seeing that I'm struggling with, and address those specifically. We ended up with about a quarter of the responses being from men. We super appreciate that, because originally it was like 12%. And we know that doesn't represent the church well, right, as far as our demographics are concerned. So we really wanted to get a good representation of everyone in the church, and the topics that people wanted to see developed. Thank you for the open comments too. We had a lot of people with feedback about specific ideas that they had for groups, specific things they wanted to see. And actually we did see some trends in that. So just to mention a couple of things we noticed in the survey, the main one was the number one issue we saw across the board was marriage and divorce, which is awesome in the sense that those are the two topics we were developing out really intentionally already. We are developing a marriage group as we speak. We are sending people through a training called Prepare Enrich, which is for lay counselors and also professional counselors. It gives them an assessment that they can give couples and then some group work that you can build off of that. We're super excited about that. There's a lot of potential there. I'm trained in Prepare Enrich. I love the stuff. It works great. And the other one that we're working on right now is divorce care. So we've got a team of, I think 6 to 8 people right now who are going through that training. It's been utilized before. Debbie Kenny's leading the training for it because she's led that group before. She's awesome. She's doing a great job preparing that team. And we have several other groups in the works right now. Some other topics we saw that were high priority were general wellness and anxiety. Those two are close to my heart. I am very much on board for building those out. In fact, we already have curriculum for the general wellness group. And it's from a nonprofit that's making the material free starting in August. We're super excited about that. So it's going to be really accessible. The hard part with those ones is we're looking for leaders right now. A lot of these groups that we're building out are dependent on leaders. So that's, I think, one of the pieces that one of the holes that we're trying to fill right now. And because we're being so intentional about how we recruit and how we're doing these groups, we are vetting pretty heavily who gets to lead a group. And so that's a process, and we're in the middle of that process right now. If you're interested in being a leader, I'll mention this a few times probably through this video, but you can go to lzymtn.com/care. That's our main homepage for Care Ministries. And on there is the application link to be a leader, or to apply to be a leader, I should say, because like I said, we do vet. It's not just a sign up and you're a leader. You do have to fill out a pretty hefty application and a background check. And then we'll do an interview. We'll run some other things, and then we will hopefully equip you to be a leader in the Care Ministry. If you're interested in that, if you feel like that's something God's called you to do, please apply. Please let us know. You can even email me, elijah@lzymtn.com. I'd love to connect with you and just talk about what this looks like and some practical things, and talk about what it means to be a leader in this kind of a ministry setting. Because we do need leaders, and desperately. But it's a good problem to have. We have had a lot of people step up. Just praise God for that. Right now, we've got about 15 people who are interested in leading in Care Ministries right now, or are already leading. Actually, I'd say about 15 already leading, and another 5 to 10 that are interested outside of that. So that's been really awesome. However, these groups need at least 2 to 4 leaders per group. And so what that equates to in total is about 4 groups we've got covered. And so that's the general wellness one. Potentially, we're still looking for more leaders for that. We've got 1 leader who's maybe interested. Actually 2 that are maybe interested. We've got the marriage group has a couple leaders, and we're hoping to add some more to that team. The divorce care group is a big chunk of those leaders. And then Potter's group is a big chunk of those leaders. So that's understanding your story and trauma recovery. And so we've got a decent scope of leadership right now, and we're hoping to expand that out as we move forward. Oh, and Grief Share, that's the other one. Grief Share that's usually a spring one. We usually schedule that for the spring. Right now we're planning to stick to that schedule, but we need leaders for the fall one if we want to have that. So that's an interesting piece. It's just finding the people to make this happen. And also equip people that we can equip well. I think that's the hard piece where I'm like, I could probably, if I needed to, find bodies to sit in a room and make this happen. To find the right people and to equip them well is what takes the time. So we're being really intentional about that. We're being really slow and cautious about it. And so those are the groups that we're addressing right now, are those 4. And then we do have several other groups on the periphery of curriculum that we're collecting for them, that we're considering. We've got a first responders group that's potentially in the works. And a lot of it just has to do with who shows up and who's interested and who's willing to lead that. So again, if that feels like you, if you're like, I'm equipped in that, I have some background in that, or I just feel called to do that, and here's how I'm equipped, let us know. And we'd love for you to join the team. And if you're excited about participating in those groups, we will have application information available in the fall. We really wish we could just, I really wish we could just launch 25 groups at once and cover every issue ever. That's where I'm kind of a crazy all over the place, excited about things person. And I'm extremely passionate about this. And so my heart would be, I'll lead all 25 groups. We'll cover all, and that's not sustainable. And we know that. And so we're trying, again, the intentionality is really important here, to how we build this and how we lead it right. And so it will be slow. It's going to start with a few groups and expand out. I think once we get the ball rolling, once we get trainings developed, the growth potential is there. It'll just take a little bit of time to get a foundation built for this. One of the questions that I saw quite a few times in there, that I'm super excited people are asking, leader qualifications. How are we as a church equipped to handle these issues? They're complex, they're deep. How is the leader of this ministry equipped? All of that fun stuff. How are we going to equip our leaders? All those different iterations. Thank you so much for asking that. I don't think that gets asked enough sometimes in the church care ministry space. And I'm super excited to speak into that just a little bit. I don't want to spend a whole lot of time. I'm leading this. I'm Elijah. And you'll notice my title is media director, and I'll explain that. But I don't want to spend a lot of time talking about my qualifications. I'll mention them briefly. Just so you know, when I got hired here at the church, was just getting done with my undergrad program in psychology. And I got hired as the production media guy. I've been at this church for 22 years as an attendee. I grew up here, and not 22, 21, 20 years, something like that. I don't know. Anyway, somewhere in the 20s. And so I've been working here now 3 years as the media director. And during that time, I've been in my graduate program, finishing my master's in counseling. And my background is in like clinical counseling, psychology stuff. I used to be a suicide prevention trainer. I'm EMDR trained, cognitive behavioral therapy, psychotherapy, all the things. So I kind of have a more clinical background. But I personally, have a love-hate relationship with the clinical setting, where I think the way we approach care from a mental health counseling space, clinically, is definitely in the wrong direction a lot of times in a lot of that stuff. I have nothing against clinical counseling. I'm a huge advocate for counseling. I am a counselor. I'm a licensed pastoral counselor with the NCCA. And I counseled for years. I am all for, I've been to counseling for years, longer than I've been a counselor. I've been in counseling, and huge advocate for it. But the medical system is flawed. And so my passion has always been, how do we do this right in a church setting? And so I'm super excited to build that out in this context. And so I've been tasked with building out care groups for now, and there's a lot of space for how we could develop this in the future. I'm really excited about it. But I agree, like there's a lot of these issues, a lot of specific things that we as a church are not equipped to handle, that I am not equipped to handle. And so I'm okay with that. I'm okay with saying this is our limits. This is what we can handle, and setting those boundaries way in advance. But there's a lot that we can address as a church, and that we can do well, I think, if we're intentional, careful, if we're following God's will for this, but also aligning with what our best practices in this setting. What are the best practices in a counseling care role? What are the tools that have been well researched and developed? All that stuff. If we are really intentional about how we go about this, if it's thoughtful, prayerful, well guided, I think we will be well positioned to address a huge need. And so I come from more of the academic background in that, and I'm going to bring what I have and all the tools I've developed and learned to the church. But one of my biggest passions is that we change, not that we just build this little siloed care ministry that like exists by itself to provide these kinds of tools, but that we actually create a culture in Lazy that equips people to address these needs, that is providing trainings constantly where I can take some of the stuff I've learned and train anyone who's interested in certain practices. That's where my heart's at, is that we can just kind of make those tools readily available to the best of our ability. And also, while we're doing that, that we know our limits and we refer out. I've built a pretty good referral network thanks to some of my work as a counselor and just being in the community and knowing that world a little bit. And so for the stuff we're not equipped to address, we are building out a referral list. We are referring people. And we're going to be pretty intentional about defining what those limits are. And that's something we're in the process of doing right now. We can't go through in minutia detail. Okay, you have this. Now we send out here. That's the clinical model. It's going to be a little more discernment. It's going to be a little more teaching people how to make those judgment calls and teaching ourselves how to make those judgment calls. But we're doing our best with the tools we've been given to equip people in this way. And so if you have any further questions about that, feel free to reach out to me again. I'd love to talk to you about it. As far as our lay leaders that we'll be training up, one thing I will say is we were intentional about creating a leadership team that wasn't just me. And so I've got right now, let me think, we've got a 6-member advisory board that is leading this ministry. Most of them are trained counselors, and just everyone on there is wise and biblically focused in a way that is very necessary for this ministry. So we were intentional about building that out. And also the people that I brought into that have been really, are people I know well, are people that I know are equipped well to build a ministry like this. And so I've tasked them with helping me to develop the trainings for our leaders, with vetting leaders, with advising leaders as they lead groups, with doing consultations, with helping to vet curriculum. Like, this team is pretty solid, and they've been tasked with a lot. So pray for them, please. I would appreciate that. Pray for us, I should say. I guess I'm part of that team. But just that we would be cautious, that we'd be wise, and following God's will for wherever he leads with this ministry. So that was one of the things we were really intentional about, was making a top level structure that was really sound. As far as then the lay leaders underneath that, they will all go through general training, just super basic Christian counseling techniques, addressing how to understand story, how to understand experience, trauma, crisis, different aspects of life, and how to address those to some extent. And then working with groups, they'll be trained in how to do group work. They'll be trained in our confidentiality policies. And then they will go through specialized training in whatever area they are leading a group in. And that's going to be going through the training curriculums a lot of times that the groups they're leading provide, with an advisor who will then add on and help supplement some of the stuff that they're exploring. So we're being, again, intentional. I'm going to say that word a lot. We're being really intentional about it. We're being really thoughtful about it. And if you want more specific details, again, feel free to reach out to me. Another one that I saw some concern about in the survey that I'm also super grateful people are asking was regarding confidentiality and privacy. Great question. One of the first things that I did was I went through and pulled my personal ethics board, my oversight board's ethics policies. I pulled some counseling ethics policies that we have. I pulled HIPAA law, and drafted a 28-page confidentiality policy about how we handle confidentiality and privacy. That policy will be made available online very soon. It's under review right now for like proofreading and approval from the elder board and all that fun stuff. Essentially, with counseling, confidentiality is of the utmost importance. I cannot emphasize that enough. The way that my board of directors operates is such that, and how most counselors are licensed is such that I can't, like, if I'm in a counseling session with somebody and they tell me something, I can tell no one, absolutely no one, unless a minor is being threatened, an elder is being threatened, and I mean an old person, not like our elder board. Someone's life is at risk, their life is at risk. Like, unless you have to mandatorily report it to the legal system, you can't tell anyone anything ever for any reason. We are taking those standards and we are applying them to our Care Ministries leadership, largely across the board. There are very few exceptions to the things that will be leaked outside of Care Ministries. And by leaked, I mean intentionally shared. Because, of course, one of the hard parts with care groups and a care ministry in a community such as a church is that it's harder to maintain confidentiality in a group setting. And even in the counseling world, we have policies about, like, it's almost impossible to maintain confidentiality in a group. But we are expecting, and we're outlining the expectations for our group members, that they share nothing outside of that group. Anyone who participates in a care group is going to be required to sign our confidentiality agreement. They will be well informed about our expectations and our policies, and the consequence essentially of not upholding those confidentiality practices for participants is barring from participation, unfortunately. We really hope it doesn't come to that. We want to make sure, though, that our groups are protected and safe. And so we have outlined policies for how we address that. It's to the extent within our confidentiality guidelines that if something is covered in a care ministry and a care group, the care leader cannot share that outside of Care Ministries. They cannot share that. They can share it. They'll have an advisor that will be their supervisor who they can talk to about that stuff, that they can process through things they're working with in their group, just so they have someone who's got some counseling background, who's equipped, who can give them some tools to address those specific needs as they come up. Beyond that, they won't be allowed to talk about it. So that includes the elder board. Specific things that are revealed to a care group leader will not be disseminated out to upper leadership. They won't be shared with staff. So as the Care Ministries overseer, I cannot go to staff and say, did you hear about what this came up at care groups? Can we pray? I can't even be like, here's a prayer request from care groups that someone revealed. Like, that's not going to happen. It will not be brought outside of the umbrella of Care Ministries. One thing we want to address with that, especially where the elders are concerned, is that the intention is not that we become a little crypt that's locking all these things away. If something needs to be addressed at an elder level, we will tell you that if you're participating in Care Ministries. If you tell us something that we're like, that needs to be addressed by elders, we will tell you to have the elders address that. We, though, as the leaders in Care Ministry, are not going to be the ones that share that on your behalf. You can't look to us as confidants who will then take that and share that with the elder board on your behalf. If you want that, by the standards we've set, you'll need an ROI, which is a release of information. You'll need to sign over saying that anything confidential I've shared can be revealed to other people and these specific people in this context. And we'll have procedures for that. But generally speaking, we don't speak on your behalf. You do. And it's really important. So in a counseling care environment, such as the one we're building, that is vital to maintain the confidentiality so that what you're dealing with in a care capacity is dealt with in that care capacity exclusively. If it's beyond our scope of being able to handle, we're not going to handle it. We can't. We're not equipped to take on things that the elders are equipped to take on. So again, we're going to tell you to go talk to the elders. But we will not be making that decision on your behalf unless, like I said, someone's in danger, someone's going to get harmed, you're going to get harmed. Anything in those arenas, an incident report will be filled out, and that will be kept on file in a way that the elders can see it. Just because that presents an active liability to the church and we need to be cognizant of that, we will have to share that kind of stuff. And at that point, it'll be shared with the authorities. It'll be shared with whoever, anybody who needs protection. And all of that, again, is outlined in our confidentiality policies. But essentially, we're locking this down as much as we can. Again, nobody's perfect. We're expecting human error. And we have policies and procedures in place to how we're going to handle that. And we're not perfect. It's not going to be perfect. And I understand that. We are doing everything in our power that we possibly can to keep this as confidential, private, protected as we possibly can. And one of the ways we're doing that I'll let you know, so I'm media director, right? I built the website, built the app, built all our databases, everywhere that we store data, for anyone I've developed. When we built the Care Ministries database, we built it on a separate platform, Airtable. Outside of all LMBC software, nobody has access to it. It's locked down in a way that essentially only myself at this point has access to, and leaders within Care Ministries will get access to that interface at some point, where we'll give you rosters and lists of people that are in your group. We'll print those out for you and stuff like that. But the actual data on like who applied, anything you put on your application, anything that any forms you file with us, even our leaders applying to be a leader, that's all kept in a totally separate database. And nobody else at LMBC has access to it. And that's the way it's going to stay. That was designed very intentionally, similar to what you would find in a HIPAA compliant software database. We built that in Airtable. And so we're being really intentional about how we go about data management. We're being really intentional about just segueing everything off, into safe containers, essentially, to protect that to the best of our abilities. Again, we're humans, there's limits. And we're just proceeding with caution, with intentionality, to use the word again. for the sake of, we want you to feel like you can trust this ministry, trust the things we're building, because this is really sensitive. And I get that. And it's like, it's a daunting task. It's a daunting task as I think about it. I can't tell you enough, like how, like I have filled out enough counseling intake forms as a client. I did Potter's Group. I filled out that application. Like those processes of giving that piece of yourself over to somebody, it's raw, it's vulnerable, it's so hard. It's so hard. And it has to be handled with the utmost care. That weighs on me a lot. And so I want you to know that we are taking every little bit of caution we can with this. To the best of our ability, we are trying to build these systems out in a way that is protected and secured. We're trying to build policies, confidentiality agreements, everything we can to make this a safe space, and vetting to the best of our abilities to build that safety. And so, like I said, we're not perfect. We're not going to get this 100% right. Everything we can do in our power to get it 100% right, we're going to do, though. And I hope that instills some trust. I do understand if it doesn't. I absolutely do. And if you have specific questions, you want to talk to me about anything, again, reach out to me. I'd be happy to talk about it. But we are going to do everything we can to make sure that we protect that trust that you've put in us if you decide to participate in Care Ministries. And we hope that everyone would feel inclined to participate in Care Ministries. We hope that we'll be, as we build this out, that we'll have a track record that you approve of, that you feel that you put a lot of trust in, a lot of stock in. We get that this is super sensitive. And we're going to do everything we can in our power to make sure that we protect that to the best of our abilities. So now that we've covered that, let's kind of shift and talk about some of the challenges we're going to face in building this out. Because confidentiality and maintaining safety, those are two of the biggest ones, honestly, that we're foreseeing big time. And we're building, like I said, we're building out a lot of precautions in order to help address that. But there's some other challenges that we are going to face moving forward. One of them is kind of this struggle of like time and doing it well. Time and not perfection, but excellence. Time and excellence. There we go. So like I said, if I could just like do it my little ADHD crazy way, I would just start 25 groups that I was leading all by myself, covering all the topics I could possibly muster to like cover everything that everybody ever asked for, because we got a lot of topic requests from the survey and from people just talking to me, and then bringing in everyone I possibly could to lead more groups. And we'd have like 100 in like 30 days. None of them would be done well. It would be a disaster. I think we all know that just hearing me talk about it. But so we have to be intentional about, like, there it is again, that word intentional. We have to be intentional about how we go about this. And that means starting small, unfortunately, in order to achieve excellence, in order to build that safety and that confidentiality and all those things. And so that's one of the challenges we're facing. Another one is just the limits of leadership. So our own abilities as far as equipping, but also the people we're bringing on, and lay leaders, like getting enough lay leaders who are well positioned, who are equipped in some way to handle the groups that we're going to be building out. That's a struggle that we're facing. That's a challenge we're facing. And so that'll be interesting to see how that all works out. And so because of these limitations, these challenges, you're going to see Care Groups is going to start off kind of slowly. And that's why we're kind of mentioning it, but just kind of cautiously and kind of slowly. And you're hearing little bits of it on a Sunday morning as we're recruiting and figuring out. It's going to be kind of a slowish launch. When we do our official launch, the date that we're going to announce what groups we have available and all that fun stuff is going to be September 8th. That's Super Sunday this year. And on that day, we will have a preview of groups to come. We'll have a little video announcing kind of, hey, this is the groups we've developed. This is when they're going to launch. This is what it looks like. And you'll probably see about 3 to 5 groups around that time. And so what we're going to do from that point is just keep developing, keep expanding. The number of leaders that I have coming in is such that hopefully as we get that ball rolling, we'll be able to, by the end of next year, have like 10 to 15 groups. That would be awesome. That would be my goal. I was hoping we could have that this fall. I was a little ambitious, but that's okay. The only reason, it's not that we don't have that because we can't have it. Like, I think we could physically pull it off at the expense of my sanity, but I think it wouldn't have gone over well. We couldn't have done it right is kind of how I'm looking at that. The issues that people have brought to our attention that need addressing, I want to make sure that we hit them well, that we address them well, that we give you the proper care, the proper support, and doing it right is much more important to me than doing it fast. But unfortunately, there is a timeliness aspect to this too, so we're also trying to do it as fast as we possibly can, while doing it well. Just because a lot of these things are now. A lot of this is the stuff that life's hitting you with right now that needs addressed, that's timely. So we're going to do our very, very, very best to do that well, to do that now, to do that as fast as humanly possible, but we're looking for doing it well. And so that's where my heart's at. That's where our focus is right now. Currently, we are developing the initial trainings for all group leaders. And those trainings, if you're interested in leading a group, are going to be every Sunday of August. So we're going to have 4 Sundays. We're going to record those trainings out. So it'll be those 4 trainings in person. And then we'll have additional video training online that we'll provide to our group leaders that they'll go through. And then they'll have their one-on-one core training with an advisor that goes over their groups, what they're working on specifically. And so if you're interested in being part of those trainings, of getting a taste of what a group is going to look like, please apply to be a group leader. We'd love to have you. Again, those will be all 4 Sundays during third service of August. So it's gonna be at 11 before third service starts. And so the team that I have leading those trainings, I'm really proud of. They've done an awesome job. That's our advisory team. They're working on finishing up the development of them right now. That's been a huge task. And this is just the first phase of building out trainings. The other thing we're going to offer once this launches is that we will have specialized trainings once a month. These specialized trainings will be also topical. There'll be like a half-day training that is not just going to be exclusive to Care Ministries leadership. The way we're designing it is such that anyone in the church can come and participate in these trainings. So it'll be things like how to address suicidality and harm in teenagers, how to understand your own personal story, how to understanding addiction a little bit better, how to understand being in a compassionate relationship, like empathy, a bunch of these different specialized things that I'm trained in, that our leaders are trained in, that we can then take that training and give you some of our own training off of that. And so we're really stoked about that. We're excited to have those specialized trainings developed. Our leaders will be required to do a monthly consultation where all the leaders will get together and we'll just address some of the things that are being brought up generally in Care Ministries. And then they'll have opportunities to consult one-on-one with advisors and all that fun stuff. And so those are kind of where we're at for developing out the leader timelines. In order to execute all of these well, we're shooting for groups to hopefully be available in October is the goal right now. We'll announce what groups we're working on in September. Well, we've already announced what groups we're working on. We'll announce what groups are available or going to be available in September and when they'll be available. And then right now we're just working on developing those groups out and developing them well. In the survey and just in talking to people, there are a myriad of topics that keep coming up. The potential for what could be a care group is literally endless. I don't think we'll ever address all the issues that need to be addressed in a care group, but I think we're going to work pretty hard at addressing a lot of them. And I'm excited about that. That makes me joyful, makes me excited, delighted, just at the idea of being able to be a church that provides that for people, and provides it well, and is hopefully on the cutting edge of a lot of this stuff. We're being really shrewd. I was trying to think of a word that's not intentional. We're being really intentional. I'm just going to say it again. We're trying to be so intentional about how we do this. I'm a little bit of a perfectionist. I know that. So I have to set that aside to some extent in understanding how we approach this. But I want to make sure we do it right and that we're transparent about how we're doing it. And so I hope that this video was enlightening to you. I hope that it provided some insight into kind of what we're doing as a Care Ministries team and kind of where we're going with this and what a care group is and what our leaders are going to be trained in. It's a lot of pieces, and you might have gotten that just based on the jumping around that we did today and all the hoops that we're kind of juggling. It's a lot of pieces. It's a lot of really cool pieces and a lot of really exciting pieces. I am stoked to see how God is going to use this because I do see him well at work in this space, and I see him calling Lazy to step into it a little bit. And that's daunting. It's exciting. And we hope that you'll just come alongside of us in this process. We hope that as a church, we can come together around some of the struggles that life throws at us, honestly. Life is interesting. God is good, and life isn't always, right? I've been reminding myself a lot of that lately. I'm in a season of grief right now, unfortunately. And you kind of walk through some of that stuff realizing, man, there's no redeemable quality to this life thing. And yet God still somehow finds a way to redeem the experience. And usually he does it through reminding you of how good he is, of how consistent he is, of how caring he is. My goal as we step into this, our goal as a leadership team, is that we can recognize the goodness of God and bring that light into everything, into the darkest spaces that we've been afraid to look at for a long time, that we've been afraid to talk about and have conversations about and to challenge. That we as a church would be challenging that darkness, that we'd be challenging the struggles that life brings, the struggles of sin, the different aspects of life that we're not totally equipped to handle, that we could just bring a little bit of light into that, bring some of God into that, and into the different, and some of the tools that he's equipped us with as humans into those spaces. Because life is hard, but God is good. Thank you for watching this, for sticking around, for watching like 30 minutes of my rambling or however long that was. Oh my goodness, 40 minutes of my rambling. I'm so sorry. I hope this was enlightening. I hope you got some information about what we're doing. If you have any questions at all, like I said, Elijah@lzymtn.com is my email. I would love to talk to you. You can find out more about Care Ministries and sign up to be a leader at lzymtn.com/care. We'll probably have more of these update videos coming out in the future. But that's all for now. We hope to see you around. Thanks for tuning in.